Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for this next installment of our Javad Virtual Workshop series. We're very excited to share today's topic with you. We're going to walk through a full real-world survey project using the Triumph LS Plus out in the field. Today, I'm joined by Adam Plumley to help me lead this workshop. Adam is a professional land surveyor from North Carolina in the United States. He runs his own company where he provides professional survey services and is also a key member of our Javad 5PLS team. This is the team of professionals who use our products and have helped to shape the Triumph LS into the powerhouse that it is today. Just a couple quick housekeeping items before I turn it over to Adam. As usual, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the workshop. So please enter your questions into the question box on your screen anytime, and we'll address them at the end. And additionally, I wanted to give you all a last-minute reminder that our surveyor stimulus program is still going on. It's scheduled to expire on Monday, May 31st. So it's not too late to take advantage of this offer to enjoy a significant discount on a Triumph LS Plus or Triumph 3 RTK system. Both of these receivers will be on display in today's workshop, so you'll have a good opportunity to see them in action. So please check out our website or contact sales@javad.com before the offer expires. And with the housekeeping out of the way, I'll introduce you all to Adam Plumley. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nima. Hello, everybody. I'm real excited to share with y'all today an overview of the procedures that I use with the Triumph LS Plus to take a survey project from the field to the Recon and then back to the report. I'll begin with showing you how to create a project, and then we'll create a project coordinate system. We'll also look at putting background maps on the screen of the LS. Then we'll also look at importing a drawing file that contains deed plots that I've already calculated in my CAD package. Next, we'll talk about setting up the base. Then I'll take you with me as we go around the property that we're going to survey. We're going to stake out the vertices of the line work that we import in to be able to look for the corners, and then we'll collect the observations on the corners. After the survey is finished, we'll go back to the base and look at stopping and downloading the base. Then we'll go back to the office and we'll look at reviewing the points, sending the data to DPOS, and then creating a report of the survey. I hope everyone learned something from this workshop. And again, I'm really excited that I was able to provide it to you. Thank you, Nina.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Let's jump right into it.
Triumph LS Plus, Recon to report. We're going to start by tapping Action and Project to create a new project. Project name, you can call it whatever you like to call the project. In this case, we're going to call it Recon to report. Next, we'll look at project coordinate system. We're going to create a new one as an example. We'll tap the plus button. We'll tap our region, North America. We'll tap United States. Then we'll tap page 2 and we'll tap State Plane Coordinate System NAD 83 2011. Then select your zone. You can toggle through to the predetermined state plane coordinate systems, and we'll pick Montana for an example. Then we'll set the geoid. You select the geoid for your region. We'll pick geoid 18 continental US for this example and tap done. Now the coordinate system must be selected. We're not in Montana, so I'm going to select North Carolina by tapping it and then tapping select. Then background maps are real handy, so we'll tap on those. And we'll tap Mapbox Satellite to get some background imagery. Then we'll tap Create. Next, I'm going to tap on Pages. Page 0, I wanted to edit the name to be Subject Boundary. This is the boundary survey that I'm working on. We'll import a drawing file that'll have the polylines already plotted from CAD, and we'll be able to stake out these boundary corners by selecting the endpoints of the lines. These are on state plane. If they were ground coordinates, you would perhaps set up a scaled system. For this example, it truly is state plane. I've already got deeds plotted, and I can write a block of all these different property lines and import them into the LS. So I've selected draw and write block. I'm going to select the entities that I want. And I'm going to save them as a drawing file. Currently 2013 drawing is what's accepted by JField. Anything newer will need to be saved back. We'll name it, and I'm saving it to my Dropbox account. You can save it to a thumb drive as well and do the transfer that way. So this is the boundary that I've highlighted that we'll be surveying. There's no corners out in the road right here. There's a called for spike there, a tree there, and some rebars around this side. So we'll see what we can find. Next, we'll tap points, then the resource button, upper left, and import. I'm going to open up my Dropbox account. If you use the thumb drive, you can select it and tap open and highlight the drawing or the file that you'd like to open. Tap open. This we're going to put it on page subject boundary, and I'm going to select only the parcel lines that I'm going to be working on. So I'll select the layers for that. And tap OK and tap import. Yeah, I have other layers I want to import. I want to put the joining data on the joiners page. So we'll tap that and make a joiners current. Tap OK. Then we'll tap select layers, and I'll probably start with select all or invert selection, and I'll turn off a few that I don't want. And tap OK, then tap import. And I'm finished, so I'll tap no. Then I'll tap line, and then we'll tap map. We'll get zoomed in here. And there's the boundary lines that we've imported, plotted from deeds from our CAD package. Well, a surveyor told me a couple of weeks ago that the survey was won or lost at the tip of the shovel. I believe him. One of the first decisions you'll have to make when going to the field, possibly one of the most important decisions, is where you're going to put your base. Your base needs to be in a location with plenty of good open sky view and not surrounded by a lot of obstructions that can cause multipath. For this project, I'm going to put my base on a fence post that has plenty of open sky view. Now we'll start the base. We will go to Base Rover and tap Connect. Then we'll highlight the Triumph 3 or other receiver that you'll be using and tap Connect. At any time after connecting to the base, if the Start Base button is grayed out, then you would need to tap to base to send some settings to the base from the LS. For this example, we're going to use an autonomous position. So I tapped on the coordinate box on the right. It brings up this page, and then I tap from auto. You also set your base antenna height on that screen. Then we'll tap yes, store point, and start base after numbering the base. Each base session records a raw file, so you'll have to have a name for each time you set the base up. Okay, we've got the base started, and I see OK and OK beside the two radio icons, and I can tap done. Then I always look at the radio icon or Wi-Fi icon or cell icon, whichever way you're communicating, to make sure we have base corrections coming through. Next, we'll go to the action screen and we'll tap collect to change it to stake. We're going to zoom in and we're going to start at this corner on the right of way out near the road. So I zoom to it and I put the cursor on the point I want to stake and tap select. Now you see a distance to target of 352 feet. I can then tap guide and have the camera view overlaid with the stakeout distance and the head and head back left and right. This is very useful for rough navigation to a point to begin looking for it. Here I'm staking this point out, and it appears to be covered up with a little bit of gravel. Starting from an autonomous base position, I should be within a few feet, since the coordinates on this line work are state plane coordinates. So it gets me really close to look for the point, and I'll just make a quick mark with my foot, the general area, and then I'm going to grab the J-tip. The J-tip is small enough to fit in your pocket, but I like actually using it on the end of my bush axe. I've drilled a hole a little bit smaller than the diameter of the threads on the J-tip, and it screws in there nicely. So after turning on the J-tip, I need to calibrate the J-tip, and you do this by rotating it in all directions and spinning it, and you want the tip of the J-tip to point north several times. The RMS values on the calibration should be less than 1%. If they are less than 1%, you've got a pretty good calibration. And the values for the sensors should be right at 100 after calibration. So you see here I've pinpointed it using the tones and kicking it out to see what we find. I like to call this the surveyor shuffle. This particular corner is a 1/2 inch rebar with a 9" by 8" plate welded to the top of it. Next, we're going to collect the observations. For boundary points, I collect them twice, rotating 180 degrees between observations. This takes out any problems with the pole bubbles that I may have. For these points, a lot of them are in open sky, some of them are in moderate canopy. We'll be using a profile that requires RTPK to agree with RTK that has a variety of at least 0.75. So now we're going to describe the point, and I'm going to tap attributes, tap type, and then tap full text rebar, found to 1/2 inch, and it's below grade, and it has a 9 by 8" plate welded to it. Next, we'll change our point number to 1.1. Here I'm going to look at some of the settings. I'm going to stop after a minimum of 2 epochs, and I'm going to stop survey when signals variety is reached. RTPK and RTK must agree for it to accept. And I'm going to use a low setting for RTPK start. It'll start after 30 seconds. So here you see in just a second or two I've reached a variety of 2.44. I'm going to continue to let it run, and at 30 seconds it should start processing the RTPK solution. RTPK is post-processing now, all the data up to 30 seconds. And I have an agreement of just a few hundredths in the northing and east and 400ths in the up. So that's good agreement. Now I'm going to rotate 180 degrees, and I can use the compass or look at the arrow to get roughly 180 degrees, and I'll hit start again. This one will be called 1.2. So far, after 10 seconds, we have a variety of 1.5. And we have an agreement on our distance to last of about 400ths. RTPK post-processing has began. And we have a couple hundredths in the northing, couple hundredths in the easting. Next, I'll tap attach and tap take front photo to store a photo record of the corner. And then I'll scroll to the next point that I'd like to stake out and drag it to the cursor and hit select. We'll call this point 2.1. This corner is supposed to be a spike in the center line of the paved road out here. So I'm staking out the design coordinate, and it put me within a foot or two of the actual spike in the road. So next we'll locate it. We have a 1.96 variety after about 10 seconds. And it's so wide open that I hit the stop button and let it process RTPK. We got really good agreement. So now I'll rotate 180 and do it again. If a car comes by, you can tap stop, get out of the way, and go back to it, and tap resume, and continue the observation. Very handy when there's a lot of traffic in the road. Okay, we've attached a picture, and now let's stake out the next corner, which is supposed to be a large oak tree. So again, staking it out, tapping guide, and I get a visual of where this oak tree may be. And I navigate to it. So for this point, with the corner actually being the oak tree, we'll need to do some sort of offset to measure the location of it. I'm going to use a distance offset. I'll shoot it at one point and take a measurement with a handheld EDM to the tree, add the distance to get me to the center of the tree. Then I'll move over approximately 90 degrees and repeat the process. The resulting point will be the actual location of the center of the tree. To do an offset, you can tap the button below start and change it to survey by offset. And then you can select DD intersection, or you can do a direct offset with a bearing and distance if it's something like a utility pole, a tree that's not a corner, anything that's not super important as to the accuracy of the location. So I finished my first anchor point and entered the distance. Now I'll go to the second anchor point, shoot it, and then enter the distance for R2. Now let's see what this looks like on the LS screen. Change to collect. I'm going to call this an anchor point, which is what I call my offset points. And we're going to call it 3.1. I'm going to tap description and clear that out. And tap point under the start button and tap survey by offset and distance intersect. Then I'll tap P1 along the top of the screen to survey the first anchor point. When surveying by offsets after collecting the first point and accepting it, it'll return you to the distance screen where under R1 I can enter the radius or distance from point 1 to the center of the tree. Then I tap P2 and we survey the anchor point for P2. tap R2 and enter the radius or distance to the center of the tree from point 2. Then we tap down at the bottom where it says P3, and I can change this to point number 3 and have the description in there for tree 40-inch oak. You also always want screenshots to be checked, and then you can tap the graphic icon in the upper left to see a graphic of where it's putting the resultant point. If you wanted it on the opposite side, you tap the green arrow at the bottom. Then we tap create. Then I'll go back to stake, and we're going to stake the next point. This is the northeast corner of the property, and it calls for a 1/2-inch rebar. So we'll describe it. So rebar found. This will be point number 4.1. And tap start. We're in a little bit more canopy here, so it may take a little bit longer to get these observations. Let's see how it goes. So at 30 seconds it started post-processing, and we've got good agreement and a variety of 1.25. The second shot was good, and we'll take a photo of the point, which is a 1/2-inch rebar in a brick pile. You can take as many photos and attach them as you'd like. So here I'll step back and take another photo, and we're on to the next one. So we'll go to stake, zoom in and pan to the point that we want to select, and tap select. 184 feet away. This point also calls for a 1/2-inch rebar. People ask about the monopole and the J-pod legs and bracket, and I really prefer it for all of my boundary work. Makes it really simple to carry through the woods. You can collapse it all down to a size that is manageable when you're in the briars and the bush. So I really do like it. It's made it easier to go through the thick stuff. So now we're staking that point. We're going to change to collect, and we've described it just like we did the others. We're going to call this 5.1 and let it work through. So after 30 seconds, RTPK processing has started. And we have an agreement of about 500ths in the north and 100th in the east. I'm going to rotate 180 and start again. We have good agreement and good agreement with distance to last, so we'll take a photo of it and tap accept. Change to stake, and let's pan to this next corner, which is pretty close, 87 feet. Tap guide to get a visual, and then let's tap point number to 6.1. All right, so we've got our attributes in there. We're going to hit start, and we've already at 3 seconds reached 1.96 variety. Now after 30 seconds we're going to RTPK post process, and we have excellent agreement. So I'll accept, turn 180 and repeat. Always look at the distance to last. Now let's take a photo. Take another photo and tap accept. This next corner also calls for a 1/2 inch rebar, and it's over there near that dead cedar tree. I didn't have much luck with transplanting those trees this early spring. We'll enter the point number 7.1 and tap start. We have good agreement between RTPK and RTK with variety, and we'll turn 180 and do it again. And we'll attach a photo. And tap accept. We're on to the 8th corner, which also calls for a 1/2 inch rebar. So we'll call it 8.1. We'll go to stake out, pan the corner to the crosshair, tap select. Then we can tap guide and follow the yellow brick road. Next we'll go to collect and tap start. And we got good agreement, RTPK and RTK. We'll turn 180 and repeat. We have good agreement. We can attach a photo, take front photo, and accept. And there's that surveyor shuffle again. So we'll go to stake, and we'll drag the corner to the crosshair, tap select. Then we'll go to collect. We'll name this one 9.1 and tap start. And we have good RTPK and RTK agreement. Tap accept, turn 180 and tap start. And we'll attach a photo. Now that all the surveying is finished, we need to return to the base. Tap base rover and tap stop base. Then tap stop and download. Be sure to keep the base and the rover close to each other while this download is happening. Once you've stopped and started the download, you can begin to tear down the base. Just keep it in proximity of the rover. And the field work is done. We're headed back to the office. Okay, now that we're back at the office, let's look at points. Over in the blue box is a lot of detailed information about the point. The highlighted point is the information that is shown in that box. Let's tap DPOS. And then let's tap the gear icon to look at the DPOS settings. Process all raw GNSS points should be off if you're using RTPK in the field, and use base rover plus base cores processing. Under advanced, you could switch to the debug server if the main server is down. And let's tap OK. We're ready to send this file to DPOS. This is the base file with 19 points. And we'll tap DPOS and then send to DPOS. This process could take several minutes, up to 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the size of the job. Here we've processed the points to cores, and down in the blue box it shows us a shift and the coordinates, the DPOS cores coordinates. If I tap the chart button, we get more information. So we have our autonomous base location with deltas to the current core's fixed location. If we tap the I button down below cores, it'll bring up the DPOS report, which will show some really handy information, and it's good for your records. We tap back and escape. Will bring us back to our points menu. Here I usually scroll down and look at these numbers here. If there are any in red, it indicates a disagreement between the RTPK and the RTK. Luckily I don't have any on this project, but if I did, I would highlight it and hit the chart button. I would look at the residuals and see what the difference is. Perhaps it just failed on vertical and it's a boundary survey and that doesn't matter, or perhaps there's really some disagreement there. It's a good place to look at it and make a decision on which one you want to hold. Up top in the previous and next buttons, it gives the horizontal inverse to the previous or the next point. So this is really handy for comparing multiple shots. Next we'll hit the menu resource button and we'll tap cluster average. Here we will copy from the last point, and I'm going to copy everything. Next, we'll look at point name. I'll change this to left part of decimal for full name, and I'll remove the average suffix. This will make 1.1 and 1.2 end up as a point named number 1. Next, bypass single points should always be checked, and you can tap preview to see which points are being clustered. So here I have 1.1, 1.2, clustering is 1, 2.1, 2.2, clustering is 2, and so on. Then we hit average. Here's the report, and now we can look at our averaged points. So here you see point number 1. And in the notes you can see it's averaged 1.1 and 1.2. It carries over the photos, the screenshots, the audio, everything that was attached to the last point carries over into the average. Now I'll tap on pages and I'll edit page 9, and I'm going to call this page report. And tap OK. Next, I'm going to move base 1, which was my base point, to the report page because I want it included in my report. So I tap the pencil button and then tap where it says page and select report. Tap OK. Now I'd like to create a point. So I'll go to design and hit plus. Type in the name I want for this point, which is parcel information or parcel info. And then I'm going to select a code that I have already defined in my code list, the parcel info code. I will select it, then I'll pick the location from the map and just zoom into a random point inside the boundary and add this point. Now that I've got a point created, I can go in and edit some of the attributes that I have assigned to that code that's associated with that point. And doing this, I'll be able to put the parcel information directly into the report. So I find parcel info under design, highlight it, and tap the pencil button. Then I tap on attributes and I tap owner. It's Adam, the address, the county, parcel number, deed reference, plat reference, survey, scope of work, boundary survey, and survey for Adam. And then tap OK. Now we're ready to create a report. So let's tap the resource button and export. We're going to be exporting a PDF format, and we're going to be saving it in my my Dropbox. You can do a thumb drive or Google Drive. Tap export, then we'll tap export range, and we'll do by page, and I'm going to do the report page. So you see we have 11 points. We'll hit escape and export. And it's saved 11 points to the PDF report. We can tap OK. Now we'll look at the report. I'll go to my Dropbox, open up the report, and here we have it. If you notice, I have my logo in the upper right hand corner. Those can be imported into JField, so it'll display your company logo. Next, we have the project name, Recon to report, the organization, operator, the creation date of the project, receiver name, serial number, ID, and the versions of firmware. Then we have the coordinate system metadata. This is North Carolina, NAVD 88. We have the geodetic datum and metadata, and we have the geoid file. Next, we have parcel info, and you'll notice the attributes that I added while in JField: the owner, address, county, parcel number, deed reference, plat reference, survey for, and scope of work. You can add whatever you like. Next, we look at the first point, point 1. It has the attributes that describe the monument. So 1/2 inch rebar found, below grade, with a 9 by 8 inch plate. Then we have the photo. We also have the 95% confidence ellipse for this point and the adjustment delta. It is averaged from 1.1 and 1.2. Next, we'll look at point 2. Same thing. We have the attribute information. This one was a spike found, and the photo. The oak tree. We have the information for the oak tree. We also have a screenshot of the information that was entered in the distance routine. Then we have a photo of the tree up close and a photo of the tree from a little further away. Number 4, we have the rebar found in the brick pile. So all this information comes through in the reports. The 95% confidence ellipses give you the precision. Also, a really cool feature for the photos now is that the bearing can actually be overlaid on the photo, so you know which direction you were looking when you took the photo. Scrolling on down to point number 7, this was a 1/2 inch rebar found, flush with a cap. Number 8, 1/2 inch rebar found, flush with a cap. And the final corner, 1/2 inch rebar found with a cap. The last piece of information is the metadata for my base.
All right, thank you very much for that demonstration, Adam.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nima.
Yeah, I think there are some really good details in there, and this is a great resource for people to get a better handle on the capabilities of the Triumph LS Plus and how to use it in the field. So I think at this point, we're going to turn to audience questions. If you guys have any questions you want to ask to Adam, go ahead and type them into the chat box on your screen. If you prefer to ask on the air through your microphone, you can click on the raise your hand icon, and I can pass you the mic and you can ask your questions that way. But I think the presentation was detailed enough and thorough enough that I didn't see any questions coming in during the presentation. So I think it stands alone on its own quite well.
That's great. I want to thank everybody for showing up and taking your time to watch this, and hopefully everybody can take something away from it. I know it's particularly designed for new users, but I think existing users may be able to take something with them as well.
Yeah, for sure. While you guys are thinking of your questions, I'll just give you another reminder about the Surveyor Stimulus Program. It expires on Monday. So you just saw the Triumph LS Plus and the Triumph 3 in the field, and their capabilities and what they can do. So you can go take advantage of that offer while it's still available. Also a reminder about our newsletter. Make sure that you're signed up, registered for it. You can do that through our website. We send monthly newsletters with links to registration links for our monthly webinars and workshops. And you'll see what the upcoming topics are through that newsletter. So make sure that you're signed up there. Awesome. Thank you, Sean and Linda. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the presentation. Okay, I do have a couple questions coming in. Adam, did you have a plate of some sort attached to the bottom of your monopole? It looked like you were stepping on something as you were putting the pole in the ground.
Yes, so I've got the large washers, and then I have a spike that's longer than the standard tip, and they're tightened down pretty good, and I can step on it and punch it into softer ground. It doesn't work so well on very hard ground, but yeah, there's a washer and a spike on the bottom of the monopole.
Okay, another question. Is this a good time to ask about converting grid to ground on board? Is that we might want to have a workshop on that. Is there something that you can describe generally about how to do that?
Sure. So when you create your coordinate system, you can tap the home button, and that's going to create a local system. Then for the underlying system for that, you would pick whatever you're working in. In this case, it would be state plane. Once you've got that duplicate created, you can tap the pencil button and then tap adjust grid to ground and rename, and then tap the crosshairs over to the right of the northing and easting and select the point that you want to hold for your grid point, your scale point. Once you've done that, it'll calculate the scale factor, and then you can tap apply and maybe apply twice and then select it for your system, and you'll be working with ground coordinates from the point that you set as the scale point.
Great. Adam, can you talk a little about the satellite background map? Is that something that's pre-downloaded prior to going out in the field, or is that how do you get those backgrounds in there?
It's in there as long as you've got an internet connection. There is another little setting after picking the satellite background map. You'll need to go to action and then tap where it says view down towards the bottom left, and then you'll see download and change that to either Wi-Fi or always, and that allows it to actually download the imagery. So those are in there for anybody that wants to make use of them and has a internet connection.
Very cool. So it's all already in there.
Yeah.
It's convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And if you guys have any other questions, or that if you think of them after the presentation, you can always send us an email, sales@javad.com, and we can forward your questions to Adam, or we can answer them directly ourselves at any time our sales team is ready. Got another question come in. Can we import shape tags, codes and code attributes to the Triumph LS using an ASCII file so it matches the layers and blocks already in your CAD drawings?
Sure, there are some means to import codes. If you tap codes and tags, you'll see import, and I think you can select a text file or a previous archive of codes and tags from that LS or from another LS.
Okay, I noticed someone was trying to raise their hand. Riley, if you wanted to ask a question. Okay, if you unmute your
Are you
mic.
able to hear me now?
There we go. Yep,
Are you able
gotcha.
to hear me? Okay. So my question was, are you able to, when you have internet or Wi-Fi, download the images and save them? Because you know you're going to go in to do a survey or a boundary or something in an area where you will not have that
Sure. So
capability.
if you go into the background images button, and there is I haven't done this but once or twice. So there's a download button. There's also a pencil button. So you would tap the pencil button and then tap download offline map.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously that's part of being prepared to go to an area is if you could have that in advance and save it. That's awesome. Thank you.
Exactly, especially if you don't have internet where you're working. Good question.
Is it convenient to use visual stakeout? Does it speed up the stakeout process for you? Or what other methods are there?
Yeah, you could just look at the standard stakeout screen and use the course to target arrow and the distance to target, or ahead, back, and left and right. I do use guide quite a bit, especially if I'm needing to chop, not necessarily to clear out the line, but just to chop to get back to where I need to be. It'll give me an idea of which side of that tree I need to chop on. So I find it really handy and useful.
Great. Is the guide stable now? There was a point a couple of years ago where the LS might hang up when using the guide button.
Yeah, I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was probably with the Windows-based LS. I haven't seen any trouble with it with the Linux-based LS.
Great. Yeah, the entire thing was rewritten for Linux at one point, which I think made some major improvements to the entire platform. One more question from Linda. When typing download map, she gets sounds like an error. Map downloading is disabled by user. Is there a setting you have to turn on to enable that?
I'm not sure. We may have to post that question to the forum.
Yeah, Linda, you
Not,
could reach out to us, to our team, or you can, like Adam said, you can post on the forum. Our user forum is a great resource to help with troubleshooting things like that. I think anyone can jump in on that and help you get that answered.
great questions, everyone.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Sean. He's got his hand up. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to mention probably the issue that Linda's seeing if she'll hit view on that prepare screen. The map download I think is set to never by default, and that's to prevent you from using too much cellular data. If you're running off of mobile, you can set it to Wi-Fi, or as it shows there, never. So that's probably what's holding her up.
That makes sense, Sean. If it's set to never, it wouldn't download the offline map. That makes a lot of sense.
Great, thanks for that, Sean.
Thank you. Nima, I'd like to thank everybody one more time, and I want to thank you and Javad for putting this together and doing what y'all do.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for your part in this, and the PLS team, and your feedback has been absolutely indispensable in getting the LS to where it is now. Okay, we have another question. What are code attributes usually used for?
So attributes can be used to describe the point. I also use them, for example, in that parcel info point. It was just a bogus point, but I wanted to put some information into the report. So I created the code parcel info, and then I added the attributes to it for whatever information I want to put in there. And there's no set rules. You can put whatever you like in there. So mainly they're for describing a point.
All right. Well, I think we'll thank you all again for joining us. Again, stay tuned to our newsletter for the next one. Our workshops are the last Thursday of every month, so we have a regular schedule. Just stay tuned for upcoming topics and registration links. And once again, thank you so much, Adam, for your time in putting this together and providing this great resource for our users.
Thank you, Nima.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.